cover shortly why it's displaying on all sides. Okay, so if we just change that from both to front, what do you think is going to happen? Nothing. Okay, so you come around the back, do a render, still shows C4D. Let's just put the X one on. Okay, so drag and drop X onto the cube. Because the X one there is to the right, that's the one that is on top. Think of it as sort of layered materials, because that's what it is. We'll set that one to back. Okay, now we can't actually see it. This one here is front, the C4D is front, X is back. So what's actually happening, it's the inside of the cube. If we could see it, the X would be on the inside. So what we'll do, we'll make the cube editable. So I've got it selected, and I'll just click on the make editable button there, or you can press the C key on the keyboard. Okay, make it editable so that it's in. I now have access to the polygons. I'll go into polygon mode here, polygon mode, and I'm just going to click on the top polygon and I'm going to delete it. Now you can see what's going on. So the inside polygons are the back faces of the polygons. They're getting the X. The front side of the polygons are getting the C4D. So that's just to show you what happens. Okay, now just something slightly technical. So if you're a beginner, this might you might get lost here. How do you define the front side and the back side of a polygon? Well, it's to do with what they call polygon normals. The outside face of a polygon is the front, and the back side is the back side. We can just change, if I select a polygon there, you can see it's highlighted orange. Or if we select all of them, Control A to select all of them, you can see the outsides are orange, the insides are sort of tinted blue. If we reverse the polygons, or they call it reverse the normals, and you do that, right click and just go reverse normals, okay, you can see the inside ones are highlighted orange, and then the outside ones are highlighted blue. So I've reversed the normal, so I've flipped round the orientation of the polygons. So as I say, beginners, that might be a little bit beyond you. Don't worry about that. So we'll just undo that, but just to show you, the orientation of the polygon is important. So if things aren't going right, you may just want to check the orientation of your polygons. In 99% of the case of the time, you want to have the outward facing polygons, and if you select them, they should be orange. So the polygon normals, the faces, the front faces are facing outwards. Okay, so we'll move along, and the next thing I want to have a look at with the material tags is this projection one here, and this is very, very powerful. So I'll just pause the video and come back in a moment. Okay, so let's delete the cube. Don't need that, but I'll leave the materials. I'll create a plane object, change the orientation to minus Z, change the width to 3, height to 3 segments. So if I change my display mode to Gouraud shading lines, you can see there, if I was to make the plane object editable, I would have 9 polygons. So let's apply a material. So just drag and drop the C4D one on like that. Now, when you apply a material to a regular object, you'll usually get it applied with UVW mapping. If you've got an object like a floor object, you'll get a different projection, but most of the time you'll get UVW mapping. Okay, so I want to go through and just go through briefly discuss UVs and just some of the settings, and have a quick look at UVs in a body paint layout. But we'll just have a look at some of these other settings down here which sort of work with it. When you're working with materials, it has and UVs, the materials, or the materials system has a coordinate system. So just like down here, there's an X, Y, and Z axis system. When you're working with materials and textures with your materials in particular, there is a 3D axis system, and it's called U, V, and W. That's so you don't get mixed up with X, Y, and Z. So when you're talking U, V, W, you're talking about textures and materials. Okay, and the U axis is the one that goes, I'll just change my pen. So the U axis goes horizontally left to right. Okay, so that's the U. And then there's a V axis, that's the vertical one, going up and down. And that's the two axes that we're most interested in when we're dealing with textures and materials. There's a third one, and it's the depth one, that one there, and that's the W one, and that's particularly, or excuse me, only applicable when you're working with like 3D procedural materials, where if you were to cut away your object, the material would be a different color. That's the W axis, but we're only interested in U and the V axes. Now down here you can see we've got some settings, and it says U and V. Let's have a bit of a play around and see what happens. So offset U, if I drag on the slider, you can see I'm moving it backwards and forwards by adjusting the offset. I'll put that back to 0. And the offset V, up and down, vertical, you can see I'm moving it up and down. Because I've got tiling on, it just tiles. If I turn that off and then adjust that offset there, you can see it moves down and it doesn't tile. If you do a render, you just get the default grey color. So we've got a bit of control over how our object is displayed. And these length ones, a bit like scaling. So if I want to make it half the size, 50, tab over, 50 up there in the corner. So if I want to move it down to here, I've got to adjust the offset, come over to 50 and then down there. So we've got a bit of control just by using these offset, and when you change that length U, if I just put that back to 100%, 100, you can see it also affects the tile. So instead of doing 100, you can sort of, or whatever, 50, you can go 2 by 2, and that just sort of converts it, 3 by 3. And then if we want tiling on, you can see we're making it repeat like that. Okay, so I'll just sort of get back. So just 0, 0, 100, 100, like that. So that's sort of these settings when you're in UVW mapping mode. Now we're lucky. Our plane has a built-in UV map, and it's actually a very nice UV map. Let's have a look at the UV map. So to do that, I need to make my plane object editable. So I'm just going to come up here and click on the Make Editable button, or you can press the C key on the keyboard. And when you do that, you get a UVW tag there. Okay, there it is there. I've highlighted it. And I'm just going to come into a body paint UV edit layer. So I'm just going to select it. I've got one set up at the right size. Where is it? BP UV edit. There, like that. So you've got a 2D texture view here where you can see your UVs. If the UVs aren't visible, and they just happen to be, sometimes they're not, what you do is you click on the UVW tag and you drag and drop it into the 2D view. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to come into a UV